What's up, Jake? All right. We could get kicked off here. Welcome, Mike, Mark, and Jake, and everyone in the crowd. We are here for the CEO Insights session. We're going to be talking about all things around steering sales in 2023, and we're all probably looking towards 2024 already. So that'll be really fun. We'll go through introductions to get kicked off, and then we'll go through probably around 4 to 5 different topics that are pretty top of mind for people today. And this will be a fun, lively discussion. So for some background, I'll start with introductions. I'm Ted Blosser. I'm the CEO of WorkRamp. At WorkRamp, we are building what we called the Learning Cloud. We are all-in-one learning management system. We help with employee training. That means sales enablement, also L&D, and then also with customer education. So when you're training your customers and your partners, we're a Series C company that is fully remote, but technically headquartered in Northern California. All right, with that, let's go over to Jake. You want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? I'm Jake Dunlap. I'm the CEO of Scaled. We are a RevOps and strategy consulting firm. So we work with hundreds of companies every year to help to optimize process and technology challenges together. So I get a chance to talk to thousands of founders and revenue leaders every year and talk about what's next, what's working, what's not working, and excited for the conversation.
Jake, I was on your podcast a while ago. How's the podcast going?
Podcast is good, man. Podcast is good.
Nice. We ended up starting one ourselves. We were influenced by you. So thanks for the influence there. All right, let's go to Mark, to you next.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Really excited. I'm Mark. I'm the CEO of Recapped.io, and we're the world's first revenue execution platform, which is really just a fancy way of saying that we allow sales teams and customer success teams to create digital sales rooms or mutual action plans with their clients to really do 3 things: enable sellers to run the perfect process every single time, separate themselves with the winning buying experience, and really give leadership the visibility and control into every single deal.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. And then let's go to Mike last, and then we'll get kicked off here.
Hey there. Thanks for having me. I'm Mike Hoffman, CEO and co-founder of PassSight. We do win-loss analysis by reaching out to our customers' won and lost deals, both on the new business and retention side, to get the real reasons why they lose deals and understand how to win them back, to get win backs and generate pipeline. And I've been in revenue leader for 10 plus years and always had this pain point. So started a company to solve it.
Awesome. Well, Mike, you're going to be the first person we kick off our initial question with. I know we're really talking sales here today, but I want to change it up and let's actually talk about churn, because think about the deals we're working super hard for, we're bringing in the door, but in this market right now, churn is ticking up for almost every company I know of. Give us your perspective, especially from what you're doing from a day-to-day at PassSight on churn in this market. What are you seeing, and what are you seeing the remedy of it as right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. And churn is sales too. And so a lot of our customers come to us to understand why they're losing deals or to prevent churn before they happen by talking to customers upon their renewal. And what we found is a couple key themes. One is that over half the time your customers churn, they know they're going to churn well before the renewal, more than 90 days before the renewal. They just don't tell their customers. They don't tell their vendors that. And so there's such an opportunity to get ahead of churn earlier. And that's about just supporting them the right way. And right now in today's economic environment, things need to be proven out in a different way. How companies perceive value is something that I don't think they understand, like how their customers perceive value. It's not always usage. It's not even always the results that they're getting. Sometimes it can be the level of support, and that's how they're judging the value of the solution. So digging in and understanding how your customers see value seems simple, but companies make so many assumptions there. And then getting ahead of new points of contact. People are leaving. The person that bought the solution is often not the person renewing it. So what is your strategy when a new point of contact comes on board? That's something that companies are not really have strategies around. And then understanding competition. Competition is coming in. They're coming in at way lower prices. Nobody is always fully satisfied with software. So they might have looked at you and a competitor, and now they want to explore the competitor. But I think with churn, it's not just budget. It's understanding how budget works, what the renewal process works, getting ahead of it, and controlling what you can control. And you can do all of that by literally just talking to your customers more.
So, Mike, I want to dig into this just a little bit. At PassSite, I'm assuming you're doing a lot of close loss analysis on churn. Is that correct too?
Correct.
Okay. What in your analysis of your data set, when are you seeing people make those decisions? If it's not 90 days before, what is the typical window you're seeing in your data set right now that people should look out for?
It depends on the different milestones and events that happened with the customer. So there are some customers that were like, onboarding was terrible, and we knew we were not going to continue with them after the contract then. There's some that it happens mid-cycle. They needed help with something and their CSM was not responsive. Or something was wrong with the solution and they never got help on how to do it. Or a big one is there's a new point of contact and they come in and they either never got onboarded correctly or never really wanted to continue with them, and you really had to run a new sales cycle. So it's not like there's not a magic bullet of this is the moment when it's happening. Companies think it's that impending event of the renewal, but you need to understand exactly what's happening with your customer throughout the entire engagement so that there's no surprises upon renewal.
And of those three, and Jake, I'll go to you next, but Mike, of those three, you talk about value, points of contact changing, competition. What's most top of mind with your client base right now, would you say, on these closed loss?
I would say that people personalize support more than companies think. They think, oh, if they just resolved an issue, then it's okay. But if a CSM is not responsive and they were sold as a big part of the support, they don't forget that. I think it's very interesting that companies blame it on budget and things like that, but they're shooting themselves in the foot more than they realize. And a lot of the churn they have is preventable.
Got it. Jake, let's go to you. Are you seeing more business pick up? Let's call it to save the leaky bucket recently. What are you viewing in the market when you engage with clients?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things. I think Mike nailed, I'd say, most of them. The big issue that I see is that most we'll call it like success organizations are reactive versus proactive, meaning whenever we go into organizations or we look at these processes, like, they don't have these kind of set touch points with the customer throughout the relationship where they're gathering some of the feedback Mike talked about. Instead, they're reactive and they're dealing with the thing when it comes up, but they're not able to get people to want to do a QBR with them because there's no value that's being added, which is the second point that I'll make. And instead they're just checking in, touching base, and catching up. And in today's world, like nobody wants to do that. Like, we want to interact digitally. Like, we want to text, we want to, send me an email, or like, please don't call me. And so I feel like, companies just don't have set proactive touch points to stay in front of some of this. And then even when they do, the value is like, let me tell you about new products that we have. How are things going? Something that could easily be handled with a text message or an email versus I'm an expert. I'm an expert in what problems that you might have, and I'm a proactive problem solver. I know your industry. I know the trends. I'm making you smarter. I think we've boiled it down to really reactive service versus proactive engagement and growth. And I think those are the two things, not having set proactive, and then just the quality of the conversations we're having are not necessary because we're just checking in.
Have you seen anything innovative? I loved your comment on the no value being added. And I'm assuming when you're bringing new revenue in the door, you're consulting your clients a lot on like, hey, how do we add the most value in the sales process? Any tips on creative ways to add value in the renewal process that you're seeing, or even the check-in process? Like anything innovative there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different things we could go into. One, none of our clients are allowed to ever use the word check-in, touch base, or catch up. Like that's the first thing that we eliminate from the entire CS language. It's just not, you cannot have that mindset when it comes to engaging customers. We have to think about every touch point. What are we doing to add value? Customers want to engage with people that make them smarter. So to be to kind of boil it down to like the very easiest things to think about, it's when I get on a call with you, am I getting smarter? Not just about a new product you could sell me, but and on the industry in general. And there's no better tool than ChatGPT. Like if your CS team isn't well versed in how to use ChatGPT to say, I just inherited an account. Here's a link to their About Us. Here's the products that they bought. Here's a link to our product page. Here's the industry they sell into. Here's a link to that report. Tell me 4 ways that I can strategically help this account grow over the course of the next 12 months and build me a month-by-month plan in quality conversations that I can have with this customer. You can do that right now in 25 seconds. Like there's no excuse to not be leveraging ChatGPT and tools like it to get up to speed on your customer and their business in what would have taken me hours or months worth of conversation. So if you want to look for innovative approaches, ChatGPT is probably the fastest, highest impact tool that any sales organization can master today.
What kind of penetration are you seeing using AI tools like ChatGPT or Bard within your client base in either the sales or CS process right now? Is it like pretty low, or
70% of sales reps are using it monthly, 30% are using it daily. Sales leadership is completely out of touch. So are most CEOs. They are not taking the time themselves to understand what the process is and what the power of these tools are. And instead, they're like, yeah, that's interesting. I tried some prompts. I'm doing a huge, AI series with, Kevin Dorsey right now. And we've got, I think over 1,000 plus people that had signed up, hundreds that are attending every week. And people do not understand that this is the equivalent of like when the internet came into work life, that this is that transformational. So yes, every sales rep is using it. Sales leaders and CEOs are not paying enough attention to really the transformation that could happen. So I would say less than probably 5 to 10, maybe less than 10% have any type of policy about it at all.
It's crazy. I was in Gong yesterday using their new insights tool on calls, and I can literally ask it, what's the probability do you think of this client renewing? And it's crazy the answers they would actually give you from just a single call analysis. But you're right, it can be a game changer if your reps actually start adopting it right now. Love that, Jake. All right, let's go. I want to go to the next topic. It's a great discussion on churn. Let's move actually back to the top of the funnel here, or at least the top of the sales funnel. Want to talk about the new sales playbook in these current times. We all know, hey, sales has shifted since the ZERP era. We have to really rethink our playbooks. Mark, I think you're the perfect person to answer this because you're building a product, trying to redefine just the selling motion and process itself.
Yeah.
Give us your viewpoint on what's the new playbook look like today and moving forward.
Yeah, great question. I think there's been 3 really core changes we've kind of seen over the last decade, right? If we think about it. One is just, we're all going to know this, right? It's proliferation of tools. The tech stack has exploded over the last 10 years. Most reps, they don't want to spend time updating these tools. They don't want to live in these tools because, like everyone else said on the earlier question, there's no value for them, right? They'd rather be spending their time closing or leveraging something like ChatGPT to be more efficient, right? So that's the first one. The second thing I think what we've seen is really just the complexity in the sales cycle is also skyrocketed, right? You have longer timelines. There's more stakeholders. Hell, SMB deals nowadays are looking like enterprise deals, right? There's CFO approval on deals that normally would have never happened. So, reps and leaders, I think, are being forced to do more with less, and they have to spend, the time coaching, not wasting hours catching up on a deal review, right? Call. And I think the third and probably the most important aspect that we've seen is really just, externally, buyers are demanding more. And I think, frankly, they deserve more. Like I remember, 3-4 years ago when we were building Recap for the first time, this was right before COVID, people would literally laugh at us when I told them that they need to collaborate with buyers, right? They need to enable their buyers. I'm like, why do I need to do that? I can go meet them for coffee, or, my coworkers right next door to me at the office that we go to every single day. So those three big shifts, I think, have really like kind of driven a lot of this. All right. And I think that we're really seeing right now is that how you sell is just as important as what you sell, if not more. All right. And so, long story short, I think the most successful revenue orgs right now are going to be the ones that take this static, siloed, single player playbook, right, and transform it into actionable, collaborative experience that integrates with their workflows, but also gives everybody the visibility and what the hell is going on in these deals. All right, you can't rely on what we did 10 years ago, which was literally print out, and I'm sure everyone here is going to laugh, but our playbooks used to be just 20 pages of PDFs with command of the message or medic or whatever else, and we give that to reps, and after their first month of onboarding, they'd never use it. All right, and it just sits in a drawer somewhere. So we have to make that integrated and actionable and collaborative, if that makes sense.
Or when I worked in a Cisco as a sales rep back in the day, I literally had my top drawer, like 8 different sales frameworks laminated with binders that just sat there. And you're totally right, Mark. I'm actually curious, and I'm not sure if this is from your recapped experience or not, but you made a point of, hey, we need to enable our buyers today to be successful. What is an innovative thing you've seen on the enablement there, or what is the kind of value we could provide to make them successful that you've seen? I don't know if it's in your product or outside the product.
I mean, I think if we take a step back as sellers and put ourselves in a customer's shoes, or even just go through the buyer journey, right? I think everyone would probably be hard pressed to put in a demo request in their product and see what that experience actually is, right? And I think a lot of us will be shocked by how clunky and inefficient it is, right? And depending on which rep you get, the experience may be completely different, right? And so you're playing this Russian roulette with this experience. And so I think the first thing that you can do is just think about how to standardize so that the variation between, the 100 of reps that can get it, there isn't that level, right? One example I always go to is like, no matter what In-N-Out you go to, you're going to get an In-N-Out burger, right? No matter what McDonald's burger you go to, you're going to get the same one. The same can't be said about other restaurants and other franchises, right? You go at 12 o'clock, you get a great service. You go at 3 p.m., you don't. And so that's how I would think about our sales or the buyer journey. And the really easy low-hanging fruit that everyone can do is just consolidate everything in one place, right? Literally enable your buyer so that they don't have to rely on little snippets and remembering what you told them in the perfect quote and that hour-long demo. They're going to remember 2 minutes of it. So give them a single place that they can just really simply share with someone else or have all of that content in one place.
Cool. Jake, I'm going to go to you next. And then Mike, last on the same question. But Jake, I was just on your website for Scaled. And literally, it's this question: creating the future of sales is your headline there. I'm sure you got a lot of discussion points around this, but give us your elevator pitch on what's the new sales playbook look like.
I loved everything Mark said. I thought Mark, everything he talked about us rethinking and looking at things from the customer standpoint. My quick take on this is that we have to think about how our consumer behaviors have evolved, and let's call it the last 7 years. As consumers over the last, call it 7 years, we have went from, of course, that we still probably went to the mall maybe every once in a while. We ordered things and it took a week to ship. Now, fast forward to today, I order something on Amazon, it's going to be here by 8 p.m. or it's going to be here the next day. If I'm on TikTok and I click an ad, that thing is one click to buy. And that we have evolved our consumer buying pattern to be based on speed and reduced friction, which is the exact opposite of what Medic, command of the message, and some of these other methodologies are built on, which is how I want to sell to you versus meeting you where you want to buy. And I think right now, most sales processes are linear. Everyone goes to the same conveyor belt. Everyone. I could come in. I've been in a Slack channel. I've asked my peers. I've already vetted your 2 competitors. I looked at you at G2, and I go through the same exact sales process as somebody who you reached out to cold and had never heard of you. And the new modern sales processes has the ability to triage. We call it, cold, educated, and vetted customers. And that means that I can skip this medic nonsense of like one economic buyer, one champion, like Mark said. Like, that's just not how things exist today. One compelling event. And instead, if I realize in the conversation, Ted has done these things, Ted should be already almost to proposal stage within a week. So, you were talking before about sales cycles extending when organized. And I feel like a lot of that is almost artificial. It's because we're used to taking people through this conveyor belt as opposed to trying to meet people where they're at. And those people that are high intent, they're educated, they're ready to go. We need to be able to meet them where they're at, not like, well, my next step in the process is this is what I'm supposed to do. And so we have to build more dynamic sales processes to meet different types of customers where they're at in their intent funnel and where they're at in their intent to buy. And that is what will happen. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's when, because again, look at our consumer life and the reduced friction and what exists today. And people just won't stand for it. And I think it was Mark or maybe Mike said it too. It's that we will start to pick the person who has the best experience. We do that all the time. You do it on Amazon every day. This product says it'll ship tomorrow. But the one you really wanted said 3 days. This one's like 85% good enough. You're like, buy.
Yep.
Right. And that is the exact same thing that's going to continue to happen in B2B as companies start to figure out this idea of reducing friction is what I should be focused on. Not did I fill out all the steps in Medic before I pushed a deal to step 4.
So I want to ask a few more questions on that real quick. So like even a platform like WorkRamp, we are, to Mark's point, his McDonald's analogy, we train people on command of the message, Medic, through our platform, really so you can drive that consistent experience. So, but what I'm hearing from you, Jake, is, hey, this experience is different by buyer. So how do you reconcile that juxtaposition of, hey, I actually want consistency because that's the only way I can really scale my sales force, but I need to adapt by buyer. Like, if you had to peel back the onion a little bit, what does that mean?
Yeah.
More playbooks? Does that mean let people go at a certain point, they're allowed to go a little more free will? What's the actual implementation of that?
Yeah, think of this.
If you're running, let's say if you're running a bigger sales team.
Yeah, exactly. I'll talk, let's say you've got a team of 50, 100, hundreds. It's really just about the questions that we're asking, meaning it's pretty easy to diagnose in a first conversation where somebody might be in their level of education. The problem is we have to show up to the first interaction ready to add value. If you instead your process has somebody on the phone with the first interaction or the second or even the second touch point, AEs that can't run their own demo, give me a break. Like, why are you even on the call? Like, this is my point. Like, we have engineered this process that is so for us. So you have to show up with someone in the first customer interaction that can potentially add value. And so if someone, again, you could even do some ask a few questions before the meeting. There's some different things that you can do to then make sure that when a customer shows up, if they're like, look, here's what I've done, it's like, let's go. So it's more about you need to build in triggers that help to identify where somebody is at and that you have the personnel and the content to meet them where they're at, and then just triage them to the next logical process, right? So you can still have consistency with best practices of execution. You absolutely could. But after my first interaction, maybe John should go to step 3 versus step 4. The sales process should not be linear for every buyer. I mean, just think about that out loud. The sales process is linear for every B2B buyer. Nobody can listen to that and say that's logical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. Mike, let's go to you at PassSite. I think you get to do analysis on close loss deals, also what's winning deals, I'm assuming. What playbooks are you seeing recently that are really successful that you're trying to replicate with other customers?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. It's one, understanding the main reasons why you're losing. So you're never going to have an 100% win rate, but you might have your number one rate loss reason be because of a specific feature that they were looking for that needed to be solved, or sales rep quality, or competition isn't a specific loss reason, but you might be losing to a specific competitor, and you can always improve the number one reason why you're losing to improve close rate. So I think part of it's being audible ready and adjusting these playbooks as they go. And then I think a key theme of what Mark and Jake were talking about is the theme I've seen is customers have more options than they've ever had. There's more competitors out there. It's easier to get access to knowledge with G2, as Jake was talking about, of what else exists. So the leverage is with the buyer now, that you need to understand that and do everything to give them the best experience, because that can be a huge differentiator, and that needs to be a big part of your playbook, as well as really understanding what the customer wants and having the voice of the customer in that journey, as Mark was talking about.
Yeah. And
so Mike,
Ed,
go ahead,
if I may jump in, sorry. Going back to your earlier question, right? What Mike just said just instantly kind of brought this to life for me. But if we have to sit there as reps and put in all of this effort to really figure out, okay, well, like they are like Jake said, they're 4 steps out of 10 already, so they should be at this stage. Like if we're using all of our brain power to figure out what the process should be, we're not listening, we're not actually solving their problems, we're not helping them, right? And so I think the answer to that and your earlier question is really structuring things in a way that dynamic playbooks can help, right? So, hey, if the customer is 4 out of 10 on this checklist, we go down this route. If it is 1 out of 10 and it's a cold lead and I just cold call them at 9 a.m. in the morning, we go down this lead, so that I don't have to spend time thinking about what that playbook actually is. I can just execute it with confidence because I know that that's the path. And then I could spend my time actually listening to the customer and actually selling the solution. So
take this to a more tactical level, because I've seen this play out a bunch. You guys have probably seen this too. You have, let's say a rep takes your advice, and anyone can answer this question, but a rep takes your advice and says, you know what, I'm going to adapt. I believe what Jake's saying. I'm going to adapt to that customer, which means I'm going to essentially change what my company is telling me to do, because I think it will make me more successful as a rep. Then you come in with, let's say, a more traditional sales manager who says, why are you skipping the steps that the company has set out on, right? And this could be maybe just at an individual and manager level there. How do you help reconcile that? Would you let me throw that situation out at you and see what you would recommend for the rep? Would they push back against their manager? How would they go approach that?
I think as a rep, like you're trying to help the customer move faster, right? And that to me is the big piece. And it's interesting. It's that again, we're used to this time linearness of like things taking time between each step. If I'm a rep, I'm going to go to my leader. I'm going to say, look, I'm having conversations with people that I think are a little bit further along the process. I want to be prepared that when people are asking questions or they've said that they're already using my competitor and are looking for an alternative, I want to make sure I'm prepared that if that's the case on the first call, I can maybe, again, just start to walk them through what we can do and how we can help. I want to try that for the next 10 calls on just those people. I'll send them a note ahead of time to just gather information to confirm that that's where they're at in the process. Are you okay with that, Ted? 9 out of 10 sales leaders are going to say yes. Like sales leaders aren't we're very logical creatures, but you're just saying, look, I want to be able to be equipped with the skills to meet the customer with where they're at. And I will do my best to attempt to understand that, prior to our conversation, so then I can come prepared. And Ted, what I want to do is for the next 60 days, do this. And I think I can decrease my sales cycle by 15%.
Yeah. And so well said, right, Jake? I think if you ever hear, well, this is the way that we've always done it, that's a huge red flag, right? The last 3 years, we've learned firsthand, the world shifts on a daily, quarterly, monthly basis, right? And so if you refuse to adapt to it, it's not going to be a good sign for you or your business, right? So if there are experiments like that and like how Jake positioned it, go full steam ahead, right? And again, like no logical person should push back on that.
Mike, let me close off this question with one question back to you on your close loss data. What's the number one thing you're seeing that we can apply to the sales playbook, the new sales playbook in the future that you're seeing with your close loss deals?
Yeah, great question. I would say what I talked about earlier, is just adjusting your playbooks to why you're losing. Constantly iterate on what is working and what isn't, by getting the voice of the customer. There's not one magic bullet. Companies come to me and be like, we're losing to this competitor. What is that secret line that they are saying about us that's getting us to win every time? It's like, no, what's happening is they like the sales rep a lot more. They found it easier to understand pricing. Their go-to-market motion fit their needs better. And companies, like we said, are constantly evolving. So it's not about like one secret thing companies need to do. It's not like, oh yes, we have the playbook. We're good now. This is our strategy for the year. It is, you need to have that right motion of getting the customer feedback in, understand what's working and what's not, and iterate off of it.
And that, Mike, that reminded me, Ted, I think this is an important point when you were asking me tactically what companies are doing. The other big change is that the companies that are winning, they think of the sales. The only person that cares about a signed contract is the salesperson. Your customer only cares about power usage, right? The customer does not. The contract signing is a through line to get to like step 0 of then the change management process, et cetera. So I would say the tactical thing that a sales rep could do without going to your manager too is start to talk about the next, we call it the next, and the next steps very early after every call. So, and again, whether you're using like platforms like Mark, which makes this even easier, you're at that stage, like, great, so let's talk about what happens next. In our onboarding plan, this is what to expect. Goal for that should be about 3 to 4 weeks. Here are the key things. Once that happens and we've done the trainings, we should start to see results by day 45 to 60 around ABC. I know, and we talk about a sales rep working back from time of the customer's expected impact versus time of signed contract. So those are things that you can do immediately. Any rep, start to talk about, put them in the motion. This is an old sales technique. Zig Ziglar used to talk about put them in the picture in the house and let them feel it. But it's the same concept. We have to talk, and sales teams need to be educated on. It is shocking to me how many sales reps don't even know what the onboarding process is. Totally. They don't even know what it is. It's literally borderline. You're like, whoa, how that's why you lose deals. The person's not comfortable, like unanchoring from the status quo because you haven't made them feel comfortable. And so I think those would be 2 tactical things, talking about that and working things back from when the customer needs the impact. That's going to do what Mike said, right? That shows like, wow, this salesperson gets it. They're going to actually help me versus this other company that just put me through the conveyor belt.
And would you say you try to move that to a specialized team to help you paint that vision? For example, would you say, hey, the SEs should help there, AEs should know, or maybe you pull in SMEs from post-sales earlier in the sales cycle? What are tips and tricks you're seeing to help paint that vision?
Yeah, I'll give a yes and. Meaning like, okay, unless your product is like a cloud solution that needs to be hybrid hosted in SOC 2 compliancy, you need to be able to understand what your product does and the impact it has for the buyer. Like my guess is companies have probably overhired SEs by like 90%. In SaaS in particular, the products are not that complex. It solves this one problem. And as a rep, you need to be able to talk about the problems that it solves. So I would say no, yes, in terms of I'm all for the last, like toward the end of the deal. Yes, whether it's a pre-sales kind of CS type resource or a post-sales, 100%, you should be bringing them along for that like final proposal call and have that person talk on the proposal call about what's going to happen next. So, but sales cannot outsource their knowledge of what happens next to anybody but themselves. Unless, again, it is a highly technical, nuanced product that, you need a physics degree or something to figure out.
We're going to go through one more question and then into the lightning round. But Mike, I'll start with you on this question. What I want to talk, we're going to switch gears just a little bit. We have all CEOs in this room. We're all leading businesses in different areas. But I want to hear about your leadership styles right now in this moment, even as you're looking at 2024. What has changed over the last, let's call it 2 years, and how you've led your teams? And then how do you see yourselves leading into next year as well? Too, Mike, I'll start with you on that question.
Yeah, so a lot's changed because there's a lot of different variables. One, like the size of the team I'm leading now, starting a company, building it from scratch is very different than large sales teams. So that impacts things in general, as well as the market, a little bit of like wartime versus peacetime, but just the market now, it is more difficult to sell, which I think leads in opportunities for the better companies to shine. But given that, I was thinking like, what is the most, what doesn't change based off of that? And I think it's one, like really having people bought into the company and where you're going. Everyone says people leave because of their manager or this or that. And there's all these common reasons, but at the end of the day, they like a big thing is you want people to feel part of something bigger than themselves. I actually remember, I don't even know if Mark remembers this. I interviewed at his company like right at the beginning. And I just remember being like, Mark's the guy I want to work with. And like, I see his vision and there's a massive opportunity there. And so whether I was my most recent company, Spring Health, before Passsight, you want people to really feel like they are part of something that's growing. And even if things are difficult, it doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever. And you need to show empathy that it's harder. Like some companies adjust goals, some don't. It's not about that specifically. It's just, you can't just expect people to do all the same things and get the same results when we're in a different selling environment. And showing empathy is a big part of my leadership style. And also that you're adjusting to the times, like given the economic environment, what changes are you making as a leader to help the company be more successful? So it shows, okay, I'm not at a company that's just like going to go through the motions and is not figuring it out. And then check in on people. Like you want to make sure that you're protecting your talent. Not if an AE is performing really well, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to stay. They could still be frustrated. So don't make assumptions and make sure you're checking in and understanding what's going on with people in these times. And then, there's different thoughts on like in person, all of that kind of stuff. But having structure and accountability is really important in all of this to make things feel more normal. So those are the things that I think about and do in my leadership style, regardless if it's at a big company or a small company.
Great answer. Jake, have you evolved anything over the last 24 months and then also looking forward here to next year?
I mean, it's always an evolution. Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to, again, I'll kind of harp on ChatGPT a little bit. What I've realized with this is I literally fired myself as CEO for about 5 days and literally just started to dive in and use it and test a bunch of use cases. The way that we scale everything, I just interviewed another CEO on my podcast earlier today, and they're producing 3x more content for SEO and marketing with the same headcount and same budget. They're producing, I think, like 50x more videos with the same headcount. Wow. And so, to me, the big thing has happened in probably the last 6 months, which is like the way that we tackle problem solving today has changed. And I still think most people are, before the internet, go into like Encyclopedia Britannica to look up the answer because they're not familiar with Google search. Whereas now, any new problem, any new solution, anything that I have, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to ChatGPT first, because ChatGPT is going to help me to, if I've got a new rep, hey, I have a rep who's struggling with multi-threading. I sell into fintech companies that are 200 plus employees, specifically regional banks. And we're struggling to get the key, whatever. I need to build an 8-week training program for John with 45-minute agendas where we help to get better at multi-threading. I just built a 2-hour, I just built a training that would have taken me, I don't know, 3 hours to build. So the way that we will, take in new information and process information and do more, we are entered a whole new world of massive productivity. And the beautiful part about ChatGPT is it's a quality productivity. It's not just more, which is what a lot of times we do with sales, just, send more mass emails. So if you're not rethinking the way that you work right now, whether you're at my level as a CEO or the VP or the director, and just thinking of all the things you do that you could be getting 2 steps ahead, you eventually will be, your productivity will be so much lower than your peers who master this today.
We're getting a little sci-fi here, but I want to ask you, do you feel, you talk a lot about, I think, impacts you could have more at a quantitative level or let's call it in terms of a tactical level. Do you feel like AI can help on the qualitative things, the EQ related leadership questions we have? Where do you see do you see it actually bordering into actually helping us being better people managers outside of execution as well too?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, think about it. It's like an extra set of eyes on a lot of problems. Like, hey, I have I'll give you a really great example. A friend of mine, CEO, runs a company. I have an employee. This is the issue that I had. This is what they did. I'm worried they're going to have pushback. I want to make sure the conversation goes well. This is one of my top performer. I've heard of this coaching model called Grow. Help me to script out a really productive, non-combative conversation to have with this individual. Boom. What do we usually do as people? We play that exact same scenario out in our head. We think about, okay, Jake might be difficult or whatever. Like, I think it can dramatically raise the quality of conversations, because I could do a bunch of scenario plans and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it that way. Right. Whereas that just wouldn't be again, we already do lots of this. It's just through role playing with experiences that we have in our head. This just opens that up. So I absolutely believe it can really raise the quality of not just the quantitative building of trainings and plans, but also the quality of interactions, and allowing me to have better prep. So I show up to conversations like more prepared and empathetic, because I've thought through some of the different ways it might go well or not well.
I love that. Or even, yes, it creates extra space in your brain to become or do a little more of that qualitative analysis as well too. Yeah. All right, let's do this. We got a little bit of time left to do the lightning fire round. What I'm going to do is go to each of you and ask you probably 4 questions. I'd like to get 1 line each on all of them. Mark, we're going to start with you as the quick guinea pig, and then we'll get the hang of it. All right, first one, and we just talked about this: AI, fad or real for the sales category? Let's call it in the next 12 months.
Very real, can't be ignored. If you are not significantly better than the bar of ChatGPT, you are going to have a rough time.
Love it. All right. Who's going to win? Next question. Who's going to win the sales engagement category? That's the clarity outreach category. Who do you got your money on?
I have a lot of respect for them, considering I compete with them. I think Clary does a really great job on marketing, and my dog is barking, but I think Gong has the best execution from a product standpoint.
Great. Next one. When do you think the market's going to return back to growth in tech?
I'm really hopeful that it's going to be Q1, Q2 for everybody. That being said, I mean, I think we're seeing budgets open up pretty quickly. Q2 was our best quarter ever, and amazing. Q3 is doing well. We'll see. We still have a week left, but I'm hoping for everybody Q1, Q2, and once people start getting more comfortable.
That's good. Last one. Your biggest takeaway from today, as you like to give the audience.
Jake really loves AI. No, I think I love this panel. I think we covered a lot of really great things. I loved what Mike said about churn is selling. And I think like that probably encapsulates what we talked about here really well. Every single experience, every single interaction, we have to dive and give value. If we don't, the only thing the customer cares about is what's in it for them. And we have to be selfless, and we have to help them, and we have to enable their success. That's it.
Yep. That's my favorite too. I love it. All right, Jake, I'm going to go to you. AI. Oh man. I'm just going to skip this question.
We can just move on to the next
one. I'm going to ask you that one. All right. Sales engagement category. What you got?
I mean, look, we're
Unless
the largest.
You got friends at all of them, you could ignore.
Well, we're the largest. So we're the largest implementation partner for 2 of the largest players in this space. So I've got to be a little bit of Switzerland here. Awesome. I think Outreach and SalesLoft are both, really doing a great job of evolving their products and making them more holistic. So I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it with those 2.
I bet on Manny. I bet on Manny. You're going to bet against him. All right.
That's right.
Returning to growth quarter. What quarter would you put it on?
Yeah, I'm with Mark. Maybe late Q4, but I think Q1, Q2. But again, hopefully a lot of organizations are right sizing right now, and again, we're spending more time becoming productive, which I think is how you're going to scale the sales team of the future. That it's not going to be just adding more headcount to grow sales. So I think, get lean now, and then, prepare for ways to handle that without just adding more people in Q1, Q2. So you can stay nimble in terms of, when you start rescaling.
quick side note on that last point. Do you see quotas going up because of AI in the future?
Well, no,
quick answer on that.
Headcount goes down. Headcount should go down, meaning like at certain types of roles, like that, because people can be more productive. So I don't know if we'll make quotas go. Well, it could be one or the other, right?
Yes.
But I do feel like we'll start to see as a forecast that you go to your board of directors and it's like, well, I've got to get to 25 million this year. Here's the waterfall of my quotas. And now we get to 20, as opposed to like, great, guess what? You got to chop that by 30%. I still need you to get 25 million.
Yes.
Sales leaders, especially in venture, sales leaders in venture are just typically used to building headcounts bottoms up. And they're going to have to realize like, that's just not how it's going to work. So yes, you will have to technically, I guess, increase quotas of people to get there, but it will be very feasible because they have the productivity opportunity.
Cool. I'm going to just close with Mike right now. Do I even need to ask on AI? Maybe Mike, give us a contrarian answer. Fad?
I would say not a fad, but I think it's going to be, you still need to be creative. And I think it's only going to allow the best people to be even better. And it's not just about like automation. So I think that the human element is going to be even more valuable.
Okay. Do you want to answer sales engagement category?
It's funny. I was thinking about it because I love people at a lot of those companies, but the company that I admire the most in terms of like trying to build pass site around is Gong. But I also don't think one player will win the entire market.
Okay. Maybe Salesforce just buys everybody. All right. Quarter prediction, returning to growth.
I think the right companies are growing now, as Mark was just talking about his Q2. A lot of people are saying that. So I think like, at least in the like more scale ups, I think these companies should be winning now, but I think we're going to see normalized growth Q1 and Q2 next year.
And watching these IPOs closely, let's see if they can hold up. Hopefully they don't all tank the next 3 days. But Mark, why don't you close us off?
What are your thoughts?
On which one? The market?
On
all of them?
Yeah, what do you think?
I'm probably similar to all of you guys. I think AI, we might go through, I actually maybe a little contrarian on it. I think we'll go through a couple quarters of dip and then come back on strong. You know, I'll probably ignore the sales engagement one myself more because we got a lot of customers in that category. But I do really respect Manny more because we just had him on one of our keynotes and really impressed by him. And then, I think returning to growth, I think it's, I'll be a little more contrarian. I think it's a little bit later than people think too. I think back half of next year, personally, until you see a full return. Just like we all thought COVID, we were going to be back in May 2020. We were all a little bit off there. So, guys, it was really great chatting with you all. We all have pretty diverse businesses here, and it's nice to see different perspectives. And thanks for joining me during this session and being part of this overall conference.
Thank you.
All right.
It was a lot of fun.
For everyone listening in, stay on for the next session here so you pick up some more knowledge.